The current crisis began after a powerful strike carried out by Israel against targets connected to Iran, an action that immediately intensified tensions across the Middle East. According to multiple regional reports and military analysts, the strike was aimed at locations believed to be linked with Iranian military infrastructure and networks that Iran uses to expand its influence throughout the region. While Israeli officials often avoid confirming operational details publicly, the scale and timing of the attack suggested a calculated effort to send a strong message to Tehran about Israel's growing concerns regarding Iran's strategic activities. For years, Israel has viewed Iran as one of its most serious security threats. Israeli leadership has repeatedly warned that Iran's missile development, military alliances with regional groups, and its influence in neighboring countries pose a direct danger to Israel's national security. Because of this, Israel has carried out multiple covert and overt operations targeting Iranian assets, particularly those believed to support military expansion or advanced weapons development. In this latest situation, the strike appears to have crossed a new threshold in terms of intensity and geopolitical impact. Reports suggest that the targeted locations were considered strategically significant, which explains why the operation quickly became a major international issue. Analysts believe that Israel intended not only to damage specific facilities, but also to demonstrate that it is willing to act decisively to prevent what it perceives as long-term security threats. However, actions like this rarely remain limited to a single military exchange. Iran views such strikes as violations of its sovereignty and has consistently warned that any direct attack will be met with retaliation. Iranian officials quickly responded with strong statements condemning the operation and promising that those responsible would face consequences. The situation becomes even more complex because of the close relationship between Israel and the United States. Washington has historically supported Israel's security policies and often works closely with Israeli defense planning. Even when the United States is not directly involved in a particular operation, Iran often perceives American backing behind Israel's strategic decisions. Because of this dynamic, any Israeli strike against Iranian targets has the potential to widen the conflict beyond the two countries. When Iran responds, it may target not only Israeli interests, but also American military positions in the region, believing that the United States plays a role in enabling Israeli military actions. This interconnected rivalry is what makes incidents like this so dangerous. What may begin as a targeted military strike can rapidly trigger reactions from multiple actors, including regional allies and proxy groups. Militias and armed organizations aligned with Iran operate in several parts of the Middle East, and they have the ability to carry out attacks against Israeli or American targets if tensions continue to rise. As a result, the Israeli strike did not remain an isolated event. Instead, it became the spark that reignited long-standing tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States, pushing the region into another period of uncertainty and raising fears that further escalation could happen if retaliatory actions continue to unfold. Iran reacted quickly and forcefully after the reports of Israeli strikes against targets connected to its military network. Iranian leaders described the attack as a serious act of aggression and warned that such actions would not remain unanswered. Within hours of the reports spreading across international media, officials in Tehran began delivering strong statements emphasizing that Iran has both the capability and the determination to respond to any military pressure. Iran's response strategy is often built on a combination of direct military readiness and indirect regional influence. The country possesses a large missile and drone arsenal, which has been significantly developed over the past decade. Military analysts frequently point out that Iran has invested heavily in long-range missiles, precision strike technology, and unmanned aerial vehicles, all of which are designed to give Iran the ability to strike targets across the Middle East if necessary. Following the Israeli strike, reports began circulating that Iran had launched or prepared missile and drone responses aimed at demonstrating its defensive power. These actions were seen not only as retaliation, but also as a signal to both Israel and the United States that Iran would not allow its strategic positions to be targeted without consequences. Iranian officials have repeatedly stated that their military doctrine is based on deterrence, meaning that any attack against Iranian interests will be met with a response strong enough to discourage future aggression. Another important element of Iran's response is its network of allied groups throughout the Middle East. Over the years, Iran has developed relationships with various organizations and militias across countries such as Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. These groups operate independently, but often share strategic alignment with Iran's broader regional goals. Because of this, tensions between Iran and Israel rarely remain confined to a single geographic area. When Iran signals retaliation, it does not always mean a direct strike from Iranian territory alone. Sometimes responses can come from different fronts across the region, creating multiple points of pressure on Israeli or American interests. This layered approach allows Iran to respond while also maintaining strategic ambiguity about how and where its retaliation will occur. The missile and drone capabilities themselves have become a central feature of Iran's military posture. Drones can travel long distances, are relatively inexpensive compared to traditional fighter aircraft, and can be launched in large numbers. Missiles, on the other hand, are designed to strike critical infrastructure, military bases, or strategic facilities with high speed and destructive power. Because of these capabilities, any Iranian retaliation immediately raises alarm across the Middle East. Neighboring countries, international shipping routes, and foreign military bases can all become potential areas of concern whenever missile or drone activity increases in the region. As these developments unfold, defense systems in Israel and nearby countries are often placed on higher alert. Air defense networks, radar systems, and military bases begin closely monitoring the skies for possible threats. The presence of American forces in several parts of the Middle East adds another layer of complexity, since U.S. troops and installations could also become targets if the conflict expands beyond a limited exchange of strikes. One of the biggest concerns surrounding the current tension between Iran, Israel, and the United States is the possibility that the conflict could grow far beyond a limited military exchange and turn into a much wider regional war. The Middle East is already one of the most complex geopolitical regions in the world, with multiple conflicts, alliances, and rivalries overlapping with one another. Because of this, even a single confrontation between two countries can quickly involve several other actors who have their own interests and security concerns. Iran's influence across the region plays a major role in this risk of escalation. Over the past 2 decades, Iran has developed strong relationships with several political and armed groups operating in different Middle Eastern countries. These groups often share strategic objectives with Tehran and are capable of carrying out military operations in their own territories. This means that a conflict involving Iran does not necessarily remain confined within its borders. Instead, tensions can spread across multiple countries at the same time. For example, some of Iran's closest regional partners operate in places that are geographically close to Israel or host American military facilities. If the situation between Iran and Israel continues to escalate, these allied groups could become involved, either by launching attacks, increasing military pressure, or targeting strategic positions connected to Israeli or American interests. Such actions could open additional fronts in the conflict, making the situation significantly more difficult to control. Another factor that increases the danger of a regional war is the presence of foreign military forces across the Middle East. The United States maintains military bases, naval forces, and air defense systems in several countries throughout the region. These installations exist to protect strategic interests, maintain security partnerships, and ensure stability in key areas such as major shipping routes and energy corridors. However, their presence also means that if tensions rise too quickly, American forces could become directly involved in a conflict that initially began between Israel and Iran. At the same time, other regional governments are closely watching the situation, because any large-scale confrontation could affect their own national security. Countries throughout the Gulf region rely heavily on stable trade routes, energy exports, and safe maritime navigation. If military operations spread across the region, shipping lanes, oil infrastructure, and international transport routes could all become vulnerable to disruption. There is also the issue of rapid escalation caused by miscalculation. In highly tense environments where multiple military forces are on alert, even a small incident can trigger larger responses. A missile interception, a drone strike, or an accidental confrontation between naval vessels could easily escalate into a broader clash if political leaders react quickly under pressure. Military analysts often warn that once several actors begin responding simultaneously, controlling the pace of escalation becomes extremely difficult. Each side may believe it is acting defensively, while the other side interprets the same actions as aggressive. This cycle of action and reaction can rapidly push a regional crisis toward a much more dangerous level of conflict, especially when several countries, armed groups, and international powers are all involved in the same geopolitical environment. One of the most critical factors in the rising tension between Iran, Israel, and the United States is the strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but extremely vital waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and ultimately, the Arabian Sea. This passage is considered one of the most important energy corridors in the world because a significant portion of global oil exports passes through this route every single day. Tankers carrying crude oil and liquefied natural gas from major Gulf producers rely heavily on this narrow maritime channel to reach international markets in Asia, Europe, and other parts of the world. Because of its immense economic and strategic value, any instability around the Strait of Hormuz immediately captures global attention. Iran sits along the northern coastline of this waterway and has long emphasized that it possesses the ability to disrupt or control traffic in the area if tensions escalate. Iranian military forces, particularly the naval units responsible for protecting the country's territorial waters, maintain a strong presence in this region. Their capabilities include fast attack boats, coastal missile systems, naval mines, and surveillance technology designed to monitor ships passing through the strait. Whenever conflict between Iran and its rivals intensifies, concerns grow that the Strait of Hormuz could become a focal point of military pressure. Even the possibility of disruption in this corridor can send shockwaves through global energy markets. Oil prices often react immediately to news of military tensions in the area because traders and governments understand how dependent the global economy is on uninterrupted energy flows from the Gulf region. In addition to its economic importance, the waterway also has significant military implications. Several countries maintain naval patrols near the strait to ensure the safety of commercial shipping and to monitor potential threats. The United States Navy regularly operates warships and surveillance aircraft in nearby waters as part of broader regional security operations. These forces are tasked with protecting international shipping routes and responding to any security incidents that could threaten maritime stability. At the same time, Iran's naval strategy often focuses on asymmetrical tactics designed to challenge larger naval forces. Rather than relying solely on traditional naval battleships, Iranian forces emphasize mobility and surprise. Small, fast vessels capable of maneuvering quickly in narrow waters can create significant challenges for larger ships navigating the tight corridors of the strait. Combined with coastal defense missile systems positioned along the shoreline, these capabilities allow Iran to exert considerable influence over the security environment of the region. This strategic reality means that whenever political or military tensions rise between Iran and countries aligned with Israel or the United States, the Strait of Hormuz quickly becomes a major point of global concern. Governments around the world closely monitor developments in this area because any disruption could affect energy supplies, international shipping schedules, and global economic stability. Financial markets, energy companies, and national security agencies all pay close attention to events in this narrow waterway because of how deeply it is connected to the functioning of the global economy. Another major factor shaping the current crisis is the increasing role of the United States in the situation. As the closest ally of Israel, the United States has historically supported Israel's security policies and defense strategy. Because of this long-standing alliance, any major confrontation between Israel and Iran almost automatically draws attention to the possible involvement of the United States. Over the years, the United States has maintained a strong military presence throughout the Middle East. This presence includes air bases, naval fleets, missile defense systems, and thousands of American personnel stationed across several countries. These forces are designed to protect American interests, support regional allies, and maintain stability in one of the most strategically important areas of the world. However, this same presence also means that whenever tensions rise between Israel and Iran, American forces are already positioned close to potential conflict zones. Following the latest developments, reports suggest that American military forces across the region have increased their alert levels. Surveillance aircraft, radar systems, and naval patrols are often intensified during such periods of instability in order to monitor possible threats. These defensive measures are not only aimed at protecting Israel, but also at ensuring the safety of American bases and personnel stationed in the region. The United States also plays an important role politically and diplomatically during such crises. American leaders often communicate directly with regional governments, attempting to prevent misunderstandings or accidental escalation between rival powers. Diplomatic channels are used to send warnings, clarify intentions, and encourage restraint among all sides involved in the conflict. At the same time, Washington must balance several competing priorities. On one side, it has a strong commitment to Israel's security and has repeatedly stated that it will help defend the country if it faces serious threats. On the other side, American policymakers are aware that direct military confrontation with Iran could lead to a much larger and unpredictable war across the Middle East. Iran, meanwhile, frequently views American support for Israel as part of the broader strategic rivalry between Tehran and Washington. This perception often leads Iranian officials to include the United States in their warnings whenever tensions escalate. As a result, American military facilities in the region sometimes become potential targets during periods of heightened confrontation, particularly if Iran believes the United States is actively assisting Israeli military actions. Because of these dynamics, the United States finds itself in a complicated position whenever conflict intensifies between Israel and Iran. American leaders must respond carefully, showing support for their ally while also trying to avoid actions that might push the region toward a larger military confrontation. Decisions made in Washington can influence how other countries react, how military forces move across the region, and how quickly the situation either escalates or stabilizes. One of the most alarming aspects of the current crisis is the growing fear around the world that the situation could escalate into a much larger and more dangerous conflict. When tensions rise between major regional rivals like Iran and Israel, the possibility of escalation always becomes a serious concern for global leaders, military analysts, and international organizations. The Middle East has a long history of conflicts that began with limited confrontations, but later expanded into wider wars involving multiple countries. The fear of escalation comes from the fact that many powerful actors are connected to the region, both directly and indirectly. The United States is one of Israel's strongest allies and maintains military forces throughout the Middle East, while Iran has developed partnerships and influence with several groups and governments across the region. Because of these alliances and strategic relationships, a confrontation between two countries can quickly draw in additional participants. Another major concern is how quickly military situations can change when multiple forces are operating in close proximity. Fighter jets, drones, naval vessels, and missile defense systems are constantly monitoring each other during periods of tension. In such an environment, even a small mistake or misunderstanding could lead to an unintended escalation. A missile interception, a misidentified aircraft, or a sudden military maneuver could trigger reactions from several sides at the same time. Global leaders are particularly worried about the potential impact of a larger conflict on international stability. The Middle East is a region that plays a crucial role in global energy supply, international trade routes, and geopolitical balance. Any prolonged war in the region could affect oil prices, disrupt shipping routes, and create economic uncertainty far beyond the countries directly involved in the conflict. In addition to economic concerns, there are also serious humanitarian worries. Large-scale conflict in the Middle East could lead to displacement of civilians, damage to infrastructure, and increased instability across neighboring countries. Governments and international organizations closely monitor the situation because humanitarian crises can quickly follow major military confrontation. Diplomatic efforts are often intensified during such moments of crisis. Various governments attempt to communicate through official channels, sending messages intended to calm tensions and prevent further escalation. Behind closed doors, diplomats frequently work to establish temporary understandings, encourage restraint, and create opportunities for negotiations that could reduce the risk of open warfare. Despite these efforts, the uncertainty surrounding the situation continues to worry observers around the world. Military buildups, political warnings, and retaliatory actions can create a cycle in which each side feels pressured to respond to the other. This chain reaction of actions and counteractions increases the danger that the conflict could grow beyond its original scope and involve far more countries than initially expected. A.